Melissa Rivers, everybody! Your mother, the great Joan Rivers. She had all these jokes in a file cabinet, like 70,000 jokes or something
like that.
Organized in a file cabinet. Was that okay that that survived?
Yes, that survived. Everyone's like, are you okay? Yes. Jokes? Yes. Oh,
No,
thanks.
I'm glad
I know, but it was so funny because I'm like, and the dogs are fine too. You know? In the book, you talk about Lisa Vanderpump being the puppeteer, pulling the strings. When did you realize she was doing this, and how would she do this?
She was my mentor. She was guiding me. She was pointing me in the right direction. I felt like I was getting special treatment.
How did you guys figure out which comedians to invite and which notes to encourage them to hit?
Well, first of all, we took anyone that said yes. Let's be honest. You know, you said yes, you're like, what do you want? Dear Melissa, if you are reading this, I am dead. And given that I am dead, I assume someone will finally decide to honor me. Well, it's about time. We have to discuss the Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos wedding. We all know they took over Venice, tons of protesters. I kind of had an ick. Maybe I'm just bitter I didn't get to go. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the state of late night. See, I even wrote down notes.
Everyone gives their opinion. Now it's agenda driven.
Is there anywhere you still think that you can get sort of unbiased news? Because I don't feel like there is. I feel like I default now to the BBC, and I'm not even sure how unbiased that is anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say BBC, maybe PBS while it's still around.
The Department of Justice's pardon attorney says that in accepting a president's forgiveness, it's in recognition of someone taking responsibility for the crime they committed. The Chrisleys are still maintaining their innocence. I'm just confused, like how that works. You know, when you're a truth teller, and comedians are really the truth tellers of our time and of what's going on in our culture, it hasn't changed that much. This has been fun. This has been great for me. I've really enjoyed this. I love seeing all my different hair color through the last year.
That's okay. Kind of gives a variety.
There it is. You can tell I'm in the lazy phase.
You look great. So let's start off the conversation. You have been witnessing the growth of comedy behind the scenes for many years. Your mother was an inspiration and a groundbreaker and a disruptive leader for many female comedians, particularly the ones today. Probably one of the greatest comedy geniuses, man or woman. In your opinion, how has stand-up comedy changed since your mother started it all off? And do you feel comedians today are free with breaking the rules the way Joan broke the rules?
That's a very loaded question.
Of course.
Of course it is. So when my mother was, quote unquote, a disruptor, there was no such thing as a disruptor. That's a very modern term. Have comedians allowed to still be disruptors? We all know the pendulum has swung so far one direction that you get canceled or castigated for being a disruptor. Now, little by little, we're being allowed to course correct a bit. But you still, you know, it's also divided. But what's interesting is happening, especially in comedy, is the audience is accepting they're divided. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go see someone who's very liberal, or you're going to go see someone who's very red. I just interviewed Larry the Cable Guy, and he represents a certain audience. And what's interesting is my particular audience is very far right and very far left. So all my very far left fans, you know, got on their computers and were like, how could you do this? And all my far right ones said, oh, it's about time. So you're really seeing a big divide, but I think that's actually helping comedy because you know where to hit. Now, the ones that are in the middle, like a Bill Maher, who openly say, oh, I went and had dinner with Trump, but then I also had dinner with whoever, they're finding the audience. And I think that's so representative of what's going on. So now do we call Bill Maher a disruptor of our current culture? I think it's a question that is being answered in real time, but there is no answer to. Nobody knows. If anyone knew, they would be we wouldn't be sitting here.
So what I'm gathering is there's a transition, and yet the transition cannot be clearly defined. So taking that to the next step, talk shows. Of course, we all grew up on talk shows. Joan was a fixture on talk shows. As a matter of fact, she was the first woman to sit behind the desk. Mm-hmm. So why do you think talk shows, with all this history, why do you think they're kind of fading off into the sunset?
I think that's absolutely 100% due to social media, because everyone puts the best clips on their social media before the show airs, so why am I going to sit through the show? I've seen all the best parts. There's not a theory, it's proven that whatever you watch at night directly affects the ratings of that particular morning show. And that because people they used to like to go to sleep and wake up on the same channel. That does not exist anymore. If you live on the West Coast, you already know what's happened on the Today Show because you just have to check your social media. You don't have to watch Fallon because all the best parts are already online. So where it was wonderfully used as promotion, it's eating its own young. And these shows are incredibly expensive. So what's going to happen? I don't know. I think this is really the dying gasp. I think networks will keep it because it's a historical tentpole. They all lose money. And for people who don't know, in late night, usually it's 5 nights a week. Every single show has been cut to 4 nights a week.
Right.
Because it's too expensive. So they double up on certain days and they kind of gang shoot. And you're seeing it erode more and more and more every year. People aren't getting the big contracts. I know a number of hosts that are fighting with their networks. And it's hard. I mean, as wonderful as social media has been to promote everything, it's killing off a medium.
Interesting that you bring up how the shift is taking place. Let's look at one of your guests from your podcast, Group Text with Melissa Rivers. You brought on Julie Chen Moonves. Mm-hmm. And what is your feeling about newscasters today and how the news is being presented versus how we grew up in the traditional days of having your iconic news anchors that you really trusted to deliver the truth?
Julie's a very interesting case. I asked her how she ended up on Big Brother, because Julie was a very serious newswoman. She was raised basically by Ted Koppel. She was hardcore news. CBS said to her, you go host this show or you no longer have a job, basically. So that's how she transitioned into that. But we got into a very interesting discussion about the news business today. And she said, there would never be a place for her or someone like her now, because it's now all opinion-based. Even if someone is holding themselves out to be a journalist, in quotes, the opinion is allowed to still come through. In the story, there is no Murrow, there is no Cronkite, who any of us believed, or I wasn't alive, but believed were telling the truth. Journalists and newscasters are no longer truth tellers. And it's all become, infotainment. And that really happened with Fox. News people were not allowed to have an opinion. Your opinion was kept to yourself. You just started with the facts. And obviously, and everyone in this room knows, the internet has really affected that, and it's all about the ratings. I watch BBC, and even now you don't know if BBC is opinion-based. It's impossible. You can't read the New York Times because we know that's one way, and you can't read another paper because we know that's another way. It's also the death of paper newspapers.
Which we still love.
Which we still love, but what's very interesting, and I know you and I hadn't discussed this before, with Barry Weiss
Yes.
taking over CBS News.
Yes.
That's truly an opinion-based leader.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see what the impact is going to be and how not only the folks that work at CBS, but how is the audience out there going to absorb what these changes are. So you started on the red carpet with
Yes.
your mom. And again, you guys broke the rules. You guys were unfiltered.
Mm-hmm.
And
Eventually they did put us on a 6-second delay. That happened rather quickly. I believe it was when my mother said, and we're going to go through everything and going on because I don't even know what the fuck is going on here. And after that, we were put on a delay, and before every show, we were given the list of words we could not say. Just as a gentle reminder.
just kind of almost like the 7 words you can't say.
Yeah, you could say ass and you could say hole, but you could not say asshole.
That show evolved into the groundbreaking and highly successful Fashion Police. Now, on Fashion Police, along being the star and the co-host of it, you were also the producer, which I think kind of helped set the stage for you as a producer and star and writer of your podcast. Tell me, as a producer, how you feel the world is right now in trying to get shows launched and keep them up and running.
It's next to impossible. You know, I always say everybody just simply wants cheap and cheerful, which is my favorite. I'm really good at cheap and cheerful. It's almost impossible to launch something, and this has been going on for a while. Every executive is scared to make a decision. And originally it was like, well, if you can come in with a corporate sponsor, and we saw that with American Idol, where they all had the cups. Was it Pepsi? Coke. And we started seeing all that in movies, and then the audience got very tapped into that. Now you have to be able to come in and show numbers and a second screen. So why is this going to work on first run? But more importantly, what are the second screen numbers going to be? I just went through that with the special we just did, and you and I talked a lot about it. They wouldn't give us the numbers till we had the Peacock numbers as well. And it's not just the next day, it's a +1, a +3, a +7, and how often people are going back to it. So to be able to sell something, you have to also be able to tap dance and say, and this is why people are going to watch the next day. This is why they're going to do it. It's sort of the new appointment viewing, but there is no appointment viewing because you can watch it the next day, except for sports.
By the way, Melissa's special on NBC surprised the executives, and it outperformed their expectations, which is a rarity in television today because usually programming underperforms what they expect, so it's a real tribute.
Yeah, but I also hit the road promoting it.
You worked your ass off.
Yes.
Doing it, truly. I mean, you were out there and you hit all the distribution platforms.
I hit ones that don't even exist yet. just in case they decided to come to life while I was promoting.
So you're out promoting, you're out producing, you have your podcast. You also have in development a play on your mother called Joan. You have a movie in development at Sony based on her life. This is pretty significant intellectual property IP. So while you have your career, you're also the steward of the Joan Rivers estate. In today's world, how is guarding such a significant IP changed over the years?
Well, it started out as a nightmare, and it's become more of a nightmare as AI has started to grow. First, it was, making sure everything had copyrights, which is not something we had ever really thought about with original material. So suddenly now we're having to do all that. So once we got over that, now we always had image and likeness. Then you start realizing how many people are abusing it that probably don't even know they're abusing it. And we spent a lot of time clawing back all the videos that people were posting and having subscribers like on YouTube. No, you don't get to make money off this. I own this. And it's literally, I've learned so much about IP law that I never wanted to know, cared to know. If I had wanted to know, I would have gone to law school, like zero interest. And a huge amount of my day is not just spent protecting it, but fighting. And the first big shot across the bow, so to speak, was there were those comedians that took pieced together George Carlin's voice and said to AI, what would George Carlin say about whatever topic? So technically, they were not abusing the IP.
To be determined as we go down the line, because as AI develops, there is becoming this fine line between what is AI generated, which was based off copyrighted or protected IP as the initial source, and what is just kind of another form of it. And I know in your life...
oh, wait, one thing on that.
Tell me.
Sorry. So there's this guy I know, and he's lovely, but he thinks he's really funny, and he's really not. It's like a step above knock-knock jokes. And he, right when he started figuring out AI, every day he would send me, like, supposedly a joke my mother said, and I'm like, where did you get this? He goes, oh, every day I go into AI and chat GPT and say, what would Joan Rivers say about this? I'm like, stop it. You are starting every day like under a black cloud for me. He's like, I think it's so cool. I'm like, it is not cool, and you're costing me money. You know, so unless he was, so people thought it was very cool, and now from the other side, you're like, this is terrifying. Also now, can they generate something that they never said?
And that also becomes, how are we going to manage and define and protect artists? And I think this is one area that was not looked at enough during the last actor strike.
Not at all.
And so now we're sitting here with an emergence of a technology that is growing like cells, right? And we're always behind the 8 ball in trying to protect what we believe legally is our own inherent rights. And
well, we just are going through it right now.
Yes, we are.
In a deal where we went back and found the original contract, which goes back to name and likeness, and another company is saying the contract, as they read it, does not affect name and likeness. So it's you know, again, the lawyers are going to make a shit ton of money. I mean, that's like, we were just talking about that earlier, like, my dad was right, I should have gone to law school.
It's interesting, but this is really what artists face day to day. It's no longer being able to put your content out there. It's having to manage where your audience is, finding your audience, controlling it. You're now very active in YouTube, and of course, Group Text has a huge audience on social media. Do you see YouTube as the next? Is it here to stay in terms of content?
I always thought YouTube, years ago, when I felt like I had a little focus group in my house with my son and his friends. My son's 24 now, so he was really the first, like, looking up stuff on YouTube and really understanding all that, and Snapchat and all that. So I'm always like, YouTube is going to be the future. I should have invested. Didn't. Not a bright idea. YouTube is the game changer, and you and I have discussed this. When your opening salvo is the NFL, they're not fucking around.
That's right.
They are taking it very seriously, and now where podcasts were the big thing, everyone's moving into video podcasts and moving all that content now to YouTube. So I don't know how that's going to, I think we're going to see that podcasters, straight podcasters, aren't going to be getting the money that they were, because now unless you can pull that on YouTube, that's the new frontier. That's where we are. What was very interesting when I was producing Fashion Police, we did not see a crossover between social media stars getting numbers on regular TV. That whole model has gone out the window, because as long as you're a star online or a star on YouTube, you're making bank. That's where everybody's looking. So it's a very interesting and unknown dynamic that I don't think any of us will ever be in the entertainment industry in an area where we feel like our feet are underneath us again. The rise of cable, it was a slow roll. We all knew what we were doing. We all knew what the rules were, how to get things sold, how to get things done. Then we went into the streamers. Again, it was enough time that we all knew what we needed to do, what we needed to pitch. And now, day to day, it's a mystery every day what someone is looking for.
It is, and that's part of what this summit is about, is looking at the new disruptive technologies and methods that drive today's decisions and tomorrow's decisions. We have a couple of minutes left, so I thought I could open it up, and if anyone has any questions for Melissa, feel free.
It's one of my agents.
I have a question. There seems to be this sort of non-intuitive dichotomy going on between short-form entertainment and the world of podcasts. People are really drawn in some ways to like 10-second, 5-second videos, reels, things that grab you instantly. And on the other end of the spectrum, young people seem to be comfortable listening to 4-hour-long interviews. What's going on there? And do you think that there's a glimmer of hope in podcasting that's not all about, short attention spans, and there's an appetite for longer form stuff in not just everybody, but in the next generation?
I think the next gen, they're very much interested in that. In the current generation, like I know with my listeners, if I don't get them in the first 2 minutes, they're not going to listen to the 30. Everybody wants this, yet people like my son will listen or watch something for hours. Also, you can start, stop. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. His show, hours upon hours upon hours, but again, it's then cut up, put out on social media. So I think a lot of times they're waiting for that. It's the old Howard Stern thing. The people who loved him listened for this amount of time. The people who hated them listened longer, which is, I think we're seeing that again. I mean, again, it's also driven by social media.
In the back?
Hang on a second.
Aren't I supposed to be asking you these questions? You're supposed to know these things. You're the one I call to say, how do I do this?
Hi, thanks for coming. Your mom probably wouldn't have been worried about ever being canceled, but is cancel culture something that you worry about in protecting her legacy? And when we were talking about AI just a minute ago, I was thinking if you could make up things that she said and all of a sudden all the younger generation believes it and says, I never want to see anything again. How do you deal with all of that?
It's terrifying. It's fear-based. When we release things, we always comb it for potential hot topics. What we have found, though, and we found this through the special and through some of the things that we've posted, for some reason with her, and I think you're going to see it with Robin Williams, George Carlin, Don Rickles, all these people, as long as it's coming out of their mouth, you're allowed to laugh again. And I find that fascinating. I learned that watching the audience when we were shooting the special. If someone else said it, clutch the pearls. If my mom said it, it was finally okay to laugh again. And I think the only current comedian that has gotten away with that is Chappelle. For some reason, he can say whatever he wants, and the backlash is backlash, but they get past it. Anyone else, they're not going to get past it. Does that answer that?
Other questions?
I see a microphone. I see a hand.
Over there?
7.
Hi. I got it. Hi, I'm Kira.
Hi.
Hi. I don't listen to your podcast, but now I'm going to. So,
Well, thank you. Yay, I got a listener.
but my question is about your audience, and is it primarily domestic, as I would make the assumption that it is? And if it is, are you looking at more global expansion, and how are you looking at both context and what data do you get to decide, make those decisions, and how does that drive the revenue that your podcast and your people get? Within your agent?
We just actually brought in a specialist, a consultant who has taken such a deep dive. I could tell you at this point what kind of dogs my listeners like. I mean, you learn everything, and I have found for me, you can stay in that lane, but one of the most interesting things, and I can only speak about myself, is people are much more interested now, not about my guests, but what I have to say and my opinion, which has scared my team to death because I now have the permission to say what I want to say within reason. Do I want global expansion? 100%. If you can give me your card and tell me how to do it, you will have me like genuflecting at your feet. My listeners are very, basic. They're not a stretch. My challenge is to get new listeners. Shockingly, I have women 40 and up and gay men. This is not a shocking demographic. What's shocking is the far left and the far right, and I'm trying to figure out how to thread that needle because I have had, and I don't know if this is answering your question, without even thinking, I had Laverne Cox on the show. And it was really interesting because it's just when she had split from E. So we had a lot to talk about. It was the week when all those political ads, the she, he, him, her ads, we posted it. I was bleeding, listeners. I was bleeding people on my Instagram. It was terrifying that one guest could literally potentially destroy everything I've done. So do I listen to what my listeners and viewers want? 100%. Am I shocked now about what they want? Actually, yes. I didn't think they wanted my opinion. And apparently they do, which is really weird. My son doesn't want my opinion. My husband's not that interested either. And the people I work with really don't want my opinion. Some of my friends do. Not so much.
Doug, we have one more in back.
Did that answer your question?
Wait, you're sticking around, right? So
Yeah, I'll stay around a little.
just a little bit.
There's free food.
We have time for one more question in this.
I mean, come on. Why do we come? There's free breakfast.
Okay.
One more?
I see a lady with a
More, yeah, sorry.
nice
ladies.
flower. I like your hair.
All right, maybe 2 more as long as it's short.
Hi, Melissa.
Oh,
Janice.
why are you wasting time on a question?
I'm not wasting time. Thank you for the compliment coming from you. I'm so elated. I'm Doug's wife, Janice. But I really,
What?
I have to say something. I respect you so much as a mental health advocate
Yes.
and a D.D. Hirsch board member. What is your opinion to erase stigma going forward for suicide and mental health?
Thank you for asking me about that. Obviously, our big thing, and we had a big meeting about this yesterday. I don't know who here knows about 988. Okay, more of you should know about 988. That is the actual crisis hotline. We are trying very hard. California was one of the first states to implement it, that we don't push resources of 911 into crisis care. Because when someone is in crisis, they really don't want lights and sirens very often showing up at their house. So how we can help? We need to get 988 in every algorithm. It should be a constant banner because the real users of social media, which is the younger generation, are in a massive, massive mental health crisis. And we can use social media for the good to show them where there are resources. So 988, now you all know.
Thank you, Janice.
You all know. All right, this wraps up our discussion with Melissa. Melissa, thank you very much for coming out, and it's a real pleasure, and the program will continue.
A warm round of applause for Melissa Rivers and Mr. Doug Warner. Thank you both for starting this off on the right note.